My dad's will had a hidden letter that blew up our family story, and I was the last person he trusted to find it. Grief makes time weird. People warn you about the crying, the shock, the weird laughing at the wrong moment. No one warns you about how your childhood home can shrink overnight, how the ceilings drop an inch, the hallways turn into narrow bowls you pour yourself down, and every door you open in a house you know by heart starts to feel like a multiple-choice question. My dad died in April. Quietly, like he did most things. He was a mechanic turned shop owner in a small Midwestern town where the diner still puts your name on a mug if you drink enough coffee, and your oil change comes with unsolicited advice about the Packers. He built our lives on a string of steady habits. Up at 5 a.m., coffee at 5:15, the shop by 6, home by 6:30, smelling like grease and hand cleaner. Falling asleep in front of the TV with his sneakers still on. He was not a complicated man on paper. He never said journey like a noun or used the word mindset outside of Little League. He could fix anything with a socket wrench and a curse word. And yet there I was 2 days after the funeral, standing in his kitchen with my sister Claire and our stepmother Joy, staring at a stack of manila envelopes like they might hiss. Grief shrinks houses. Law firms make them echo. Dad always said he wasn't a paperwork guy, which was true if you looked at his desk, a battlefield where receipts went to die. But tucked beneath the chaos, he kept perfect order. Tabs in a battered accordion folder, maintenance logs in binder clip stacks, a spiral notebook thick with the kind of small-town transactions that still happen on handshakes. When he finally agreed to write a will last year, after 2 scare heart attacks and 1 terrifying ambulance ride across town, he did it the way he built brake calipers. Slowly, precisely, with a pencil tucked behind his ear. The funeral had been kind. People who knew him since his first shop, a cinder block rectangle with an awning that flapped in storms, hugged us and told us their favorite, "Your dad saved my rust bucket" stories. Neighbors brought casseroles we couldn't eat. My best friend from grade school flew in and shared a beer on the tailgate leaning against the shop's rusted sign. I kept expecting Dad to wander in from the garage, wiping his hands on a towel and asking why everyone was in his way. But the third day was the will. Joy insisted on a proper reading, which is not how things actually work, our lawyer would later confirm. But tradition is religion when you're trying to glue yourself together. So there we were. Me, younger sibling by 2 years, a designer who left and then came back. Claire, older, steadier, the spreadsheet to my scribble. And Joy, married Dad 6 years after Mom died, cheerful and brittle at the same time. We'd all agreed on coffee and civility. We were all lying. Our lawyer, Harris, is the kind of man who looks like he was born in a suit. Tidy, neutral, with a voice like paper. He brought the envelopes. Joy brought a pen. Claire brought the habit of counting breaths. I brought a notebook that said ideas on the cover because I hate showing up empty-handed to anything I might need to remember later. Harris did the thing. He didn't say, "I'm sorry for your loss," again, because I think he can't feel his mouth say it anymore. He spread the will pages out. He said estate, personal property, business interests. My brain did that thing grief brains do, where it turns business words into fog. But I understood the headlines. The house to Joy, the shop split between me and Claire, in equal shares, the savings into a trust for our niece, Claire's kid, and the truck to whoever promises not to drive it like a jackass, written in Dad's handwriting as a formal clause that made Harris pinch the bridge of his nose. We were doing okay, all things considered, until we got to a sentence that Harris didn't read out loud so much as fine with his finger, and then squint at like it had appeared on the paper, just to mess with him. "There appears to be an addendum," he said slowly, "instruction to locate an additional letter." Joy leaned forward. "What letter?" Harris cleared his throat. "It says, to be opened by my kids, by them alone, when they're ready. It's in the place they'll know to look if they remember how I always hide the last piece." I felt, in a way I can't fully explain, a cold draft run through the house. Joy's mouth tightened. Claire looked at me. We both had the same face on, the one we wore when Dad hid Easter baskets in places that required a stepladder in a tetanus shot. "The last piece," Claire said, "like the last piece of a puzzle." "Or the last bolt," I muttered. We spent the next hour pretending we weren't a decade and a half old, huffing and rolling our eyes while we looked in all the old hiding places. Inside the shop fridge, wrong. Behind the under-sink cleaning caddy, wrong. Taped to the bottom of the coffee table, wrong. And in the pocket of his old Packers jacket, wrong, but we found a peppermint we decided was a museum piece. Joy hovered, annoyed that Dad had written an instruction that excluded her, and nursing the kind of territorial hurt that happens when death turns love into property. Harris, to his credit, excused himself and left us to the ghost hunt. We found it not in the house, but in the shop. Of course we did. Dad's real living room had always been the bay, with the cracked concrete, the pegboard tool wall, the rolling stool he dragged around like a dog on a leash. Claire stood dead center and looked around like she was trying to see the space the way he did. I walked straight to the red Snap-on box that anchored his universe, the massive tool chest with a top lid so dented you could map our childhoods on it. I lifted the lid, sockets lined up like obedient soldiers, the smell of oil and old work. And then, because Dad taught me to check what looks too perfect, I rapped my knuckle against the back panel, a habit inherited like eye color. The sound changed half an inch to the left, hollow then solid. I looked at Claire. She smiled, tight and wet-eyed. "The last piece," she said. 4 screws later, which felt like both 5 minutes and 17 years, the back panel eased out and a manila envelope slid into my hand. My name and Claire's were written on it, block letters. On the back, "Read this alone. In the shop. Keep the door closed." He'd underlined closed twice. Joy's silhouette darkened the office window a beat later. Claire waved her off. "Dad's instructions," she mouthed. Joy stormed away so loudly it made the open bay door rattle. The echo of her footsteps faded into the hum of our old shop fan. We sat on the rolling stool. I tore the envelope with the same care Dad used to open shipments with razor blades somehow never dull. The letter inside was thicker than I expected. Not one page. Several. His handwriting, blocky, stubborn, looping in odd places like it was resisting being read by anyone but us, filled the lines. "Okay," I said, because saying okay to a dead parent feels like knocking on a closed door. "Let's hear it." I read out loud because that's how Dad taught us letters were meant to be. My voice wobbled on the first word and then found its footing in his cadence. "Kids, if you're reading this, then either Harris did his job or you two were nosy enough to go looking. Either way, good. I figured you'd find it faster than anyone else because you know how I hide things. Not where they're safe, but where they make sense. This shop holds the sense. I've never been good at talking about things that aren't bolts, bills, and baseball, so I'm writing instead. This part ain't for Joy, she has her own letter. This part is for you because there's something I didn't say right while I was here, and I don't want you to find it out from anyone but me. First, the shop. I left it to you both because I don't know which one of you will need it more, and because you both know what it means. Sell it if you need to. Keep it if you can. If you keep it, do it together or don't do it at all. You're different, but you're a set. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Second, there is a key in the bottom drawer of the office desk. It's for the gray locker behind the compressor. Inside, you'll find a lockbox. That's where the part I never said right lives. Third, do not open the lockbox without the both of you in the room. Doors closed. If you can't be in the same room, then wait until you can. Some things are too heavy to carry alone. If I did one thing right, it's you two. Remember that before you read further. Dad, I stopped. The shop ticked in the quiet. Metal cooling, air settling, memory stretching its arms. Claire had her fist pressed against her mouth. "What did he do?" she whispered, not accusing, afraid. Dad was not a secrets guy. He was suspicious of surprises. They always cost money. Allergic to spectacle. The idea that he had a second letter and a lockbox and rules. It felt like finding a secret compartment in a man you thought was made of straight lines. I folded the pages back into the envelope and looked at the office. The desk waited like a held breath. Claire nodded. We moved together, muscle memory from 1,000 Saturdays, fetching paperwork for him. Bottom drawer, a jumble of pens, a tape measure, a cracked calculator that we will never throw out because it still kind of works. Beneath a folded invoice pad, a small brass key taped to the wood with blue painter's tape. In Dad's world, painter's tape was as formal as a seal. The gray locker behind the compressor had been there since the Clinton administration. It held, I don't know, a vibe. The kind of do-not-open energy that's more suggestion than threat. The key turned with a push that felt too ceremonial to be mechanical. Inside, coveralls, a folded moving blanket, a cardboard box labeled hoses, a lockbox the size of a loaf of bread with a cheap dial. Words carved into the lid with something sharp. For the kids. I set it on the desk. The dial took the key too. The lock clicked with the sound of small machines doing exactly what they were built to do. The lid lifted. Inside were 5 things. A leather wallet, older than any I'd seen him carry. A single Polaroid in a sandwich bag, edges soft with time. An envelope from the county clerk's office, unopened but yellowing. A ring in a little drawstring pouch. A folded note, short, with our names again. Claire reached for the note like it was a lifeline. I read it. Kids, start with the photo, then the envelope, then the wallet, then the ring. I know you're mad I made it a scavenger hunt. I'm sorry, I figure if you get mad, you'll keep moving instead of freezing. There's no good order for this. This one will have to do. Dad. Okay, I said. Photo. My hands didn't feel like they belonged to me as I slid the Polaroid out of the bag. The colors had faded to that washed-out late 80s, early 90s palette, where everything looks like a memory even when it's new. There was Dad, maybe 25, hair dark and stubborn. Lean in a way I'd only seen in black and white portraits in my grandmother's hallway. His arm was around a woman I didn't recognize. Pretty, sharp-eyed, wearing a jean jacket with pins. In her arms, a baby. Not newborn, not toddler. That soft, intense in-between where kids stare at you like they're memorizing your shape. On the white stripe at the bottom, in Dad's handwriting, Jess, 1993. Claire leaned in so hard her shoulder bumped mine. Do you? I shook my head. No. The county envelope came next. I slid it open with my thumbnail. Out slid a certified copy of a birth certificate. Name, Jesse Allen. Mother, Vanessa Ruiz. Father. The dash sat there like a dare. Birthplace, our county hospital. Date, 1 year before I was born. Claire was already shaking her head. No, Dad would have told us. I unfolded the wallet. Inside, a photo of the same baby in a cheap frame sleeve, a hospital bracelet, and a bus ticket stub to a city 2 hours away, dated 3 weeks after the birth. Tucked behind the change pocket, a folded receipt from a Western Union transfer. 800, memo line, for rent. The ring was last, not fancy. A thin band, worn at the edges. Not my mom's, not anything I recognized. We just stood there. The fan hummed. Someone down the block revved a motorcycle. Time went syrup thick. It wasn't that I couldn't piece it together. It's that my brain refused to set the pieces in the same picture. Dad's first big, true secret wasn't a stack of unpaid taxes or hidden debt. It was a person. Claire found her voice at last. He had a child, she said, like reading a sentence in a language she hadn't practiced in years. Before us, he had a child and... What? Gave him up? Was pushed out? She broke off. Why didn't he tell us? There was one more thing in the lockbox I hadn't pulled yet. A second, thicker envelope with our names. The paper bowed around something heavy. I hadn't seen it because it stuck to the felt bottom. I opened it. 2 items slid out. A folded letter, pages multiple, and a flat black key fob with the shop's address written on masking tape. The kind the locksmith gives you when there's a safe you'll probably forget how to open. I unfolded the letter. It wasn't Dad's handwriting this time. It was tight, careful script. It started with Mr. Keller, and then a second line. Or whoever loves him enough to find this after he's gone. I didn't recognize the name at the bottom until Claire said it out loud, like a prayer she didn't know she knew. Vanessa. Ah, the woman from the photo. My hands shook as I began to read her words. To Dad, to us, to the future we were standing inside of without a map. Before I got through the first paragraph, Joy's voice cut through the door. Are you two about done? Sharp, rattled. The lawyer's asking what to tell the bank about the inventory. Claire looked at me. I looked at the open box. I put my hand over the letter like I could keep it from evaporating. 2 minutes, I called, trying to make my voice sound like everything was fine. It wasn't. The shop felt suddenly like a confession booth with the curtain ripped down. Dad's secret wasn't a single thing, it was a corridor, and Vanessa's letter was the key. I closed the lockbox and slid it back an inch, a reflex I couldn't explain. The last piece of Dad's life wasn't hidden anymore. It was in our hands. And if what I'd read in 2 sentences was even half of what was coming, then the will wasn't going to be the loudest part of this week. The letter was. Close the door, I told Claire. Her hand hovered on the knob. Then she shut it, and we started reading. We read it once through without stopping. Then again slower, with the kind of dread that makes your eyes skip and your heart insist. Go back, read that sentence again. You're not ready for the next one. Vanessa's handwriting was deliberate, a person trying to be calm while she rewrote history. Mr. Keller, we agreed on silence once. I kept it for 29 years. You called it protection, I called it survival. I guess I am writing now because time makes liars out of good intentions. And because I heard from a nurse that you went into the hospital last spring. I didn't mean to hear it, I was there too. Different wing, different reason. Bad luck has a small town blueprint. I told myself our story was a one-time thing that turned into a lifetime of almost. I stop myself from driving by your shop sometimes when the weather's good. Don't flatter yourself. I'm not romantic. I just like to see that you're still moving. You see where I'm going? There was a boy. You knew that. You also know your name isn't on that paper by choice we made together because my mother swore she'd throw me out otherwise. I never asked you for money. You gave it anyway that month. We thought it might save what couldn't be saved. I never asked you to come. You came twice. Then I told you not to come again. I know why you listened. You were going to be a father the right way soon, with the woman you married. I know because I saw her at the grocery with a registry gun and a face full of joy. I know because I stood in the parking lot, sucking on a cigarette that I swore I'd quit when the baby came. And I counted my reasons to let you go like change at the bottom of a purse. Here's the part you don't know. He found you anyway. Not in person. In the little ways. He looks like you behind the eyes. He took apart our vacuum with a butter knife and put it back together at 4. He loved the clatter of machines, hated being lied to, and taught himself how to fix the dryer with a YouTube video in pure rage. He asked me once, when he was 10, why some dads come to school plays and some dads send tickets to movies. I told him the truth I could live with that day, and the truth I could live with the next wasn't always the same. I raised him with the idea that you weren't a villain, that we made a choice to keep our lives from smashing each other to bits. Sometimes I believed it. Mostly I resented you. But the thing about resentment is that it turns into understanding when your kid turns out okay. He did. He's okay. He is named Jesse. You would have liked him. He's stubborn. He's kind when it costs him something. He breaks things on purpose when he knows he can fix them. He moved away and told me not to say where, because this town cooks gossip like barbecue. He sends me money when I don't ask and photos when I do. He has a scar under his chin that he got trying to climb a fence. You have the same one. I am not asking you for anything. I am asking you to tell your people the truth. Someday they will need a story that doesn't make them feel like they were the only thing that ever mattered to you. They were not. And that doesn't have to mean they mattered less. If you're reading this, it means you did what I hoped. You wrote something down that tells them where to find this letter when I'm not brave enough to put it in their hands. That is the only brave I am asking from you. There is a safe in the concrete at the back wall, behind the pegboard. Jesse left you something when he was 18 and annoyed and wanted to throw his history into a hole. He told me I should tell you where it is in case you ever wanted it back. 2 turns left to 26, 1 right to 13, 1 left to 12. I told him that if you wanted it, you would find it. He said you wouldn't look. I hope he's wrong. Vanessa Ruiz. The page ended on the kind of sentence that drops a person-shaped weight onto your chest. Claire slowly set the letter down like it would shatter if she moved too fast. Back wall, she said. Pegboard. Concrete, I said. Safe. We stood in sync like we were 12, and Dad had told us to fetch the box of bolts that somehow always migrated to the top shelf. The pegboard ran the length of the back wall like a library of iron. Wrenches hung in size order because he believed in mechanical justice. The concrete behind it had been patched and repatched over the years, where projects leaned too hard or winters cracked everything that wasn't anchored. We scanned for a square. Then another habit kicked in. The way Dad always taught us to find seams by light, not touch. I pulled out my phone flashlight and ran it low along the base. A shadow jutted wrong 8 feet from the corner, a smoothness cut into rough. We pulled off hooks. We moved the board. Behind it, a concrete panel with edges too clean. I knocked, hollow. The numbers from the letter clanged in my head like a locker room chant. 2 left to 26, 1 right to 13, 1 left to 12. The fob in my pocket fit a dial I couldn't see until my fingers found it. Flush with the wall, old cold. I turned, counting like Dad taught me to count torque. Steady, don't cheat. Trust what you feel more than what you think you see. When it opened, it didn't swing. It sighed. The kind of sigh that says someone meant for this to be hard and also inevitable. Inside, a bundle wrapped in shop rags, a slim notebook with an elastic band, a sealed envelope with Jesse across the front, in the kind of all-caps teenagers use when they want something to look serious. Underneath, at the very bottom, a thick bank envelope rubber-banded closed. The edges of the bills inside were visible like scales. I looked at Claire. She looked at me. We both looked like our father for a second. A little scared, a little stubborn. Ready to ruin and fix something in the same breath. Which first? She asked. I did what Dad had instructed in the first letter. Keep moving. Notebook. It was a log, dates in the margins, months running from the year Jesse would have been 17 to the year he turned 19. Entries that looked like a conversation with a person who wouldn't talk back. July 9th. Tried the number Vanessa gave. No answer. Left message. Garage is open if you want to come by. July 10th. Closed early. Drove past the rental on Washington. No, idiot. Came back. July 13th. Kid showed up. Didn't come in. Stood across the street. I pretended not to see him. We're both cowards. The entries were uneven. Long when he couldn't help it. Staccato when he could. The picture they drew was the opposite of the one I'd made in my head. Dad had not chosen easy silence. He had stumbled, wrong-footed and afraid, into a half-life of trying. He had mailed a toolkit to an address that returned the box with no such tenant stamped in purple. He had written a letter that came back unopened a year later with the corner of the envelope torn, like someone had almost tried. The sealed envelope with Jesse on it felt radioactive. We didn't open it. The shop rag bundle held the kind of talismans boys leave behind when they're trying not to need them. A rusted bike chain, a pocket knife with initials scratched into the handle, JR, a ticket stub to a baseball game 3 towns over, a photo of a busted knuckle healed badly. Claire pressed her thumb to the initials. He was here, she said, like we were ghost hunting and she'd heard a name in static. The bank envelope was last. Cash. Not thousands, but enough to be heavy. Tucked under the bills, a receipt. Western Union again. This time from Jesse to Martin Keller, our dad. Amount 600. Memo. Repaying the loan, even though I didn't ask for it. I didn't realize I was crying until Claire handed me a shop towel. We're not the only ones he loved, she said. Not accusing, not jealous, just recalibrated. There was a knock at the office window. Joy again. The bank kids, she called. They're waiting for inventory. I wiped my face with hands that smelled like metal and long stories. We're coming, I said. 2 minutes. What are we going to tell her? Claire asked, eyes on the notebook. The safe, the past. I looked at the letter on the desk like it could coach me from the bench. What he told us to tell her, I said. The truth. You think she'll let that live in this house? No. I stood. But we will. We closed the safe. We slid the pegboard back. We tucked the notebook into the lockbox, locked it, replaced the panel on the red snap-on like we'd never moved it, and carried the letter like a live wire down the hall. Dad's will had divided property like someone placing tools in the right drawers. The letter, the safe, the log. That was the part he'd never learned how to say while living. He'd made us the messengers. The last piece wasn't a thing to find, it was a person, and we were going to have to go looking. Joy didn't take it well, which to be fair, neither did I at first. The truth doesn't just crack open cleanly, it splinters. When you tell someone their husband had a child decades before you, there's no graceful way to start that sentence. We sat at the kitchen table where the coffee had gone cold 3 times already that week. Claire was the one who finally said it. Dad had another kid, she said, simple as a weather report. Joy laughed, not a funny laugh. The kind people make when their brain needs a few seconds to catch up with reality. That's ridiculous, she said. I was married to the man for 20 years. You think he'd keep something like that from me? I slid Vanessa's letter across the table. She stared at the paper like it was a snake. Then she pushed it back. I don't need to read. Whatever this is. Joy, Claire said quietly. We're not making this up. She stood pacing. You kids always thought your father was some mystery. He wasn't. He was a good man, a quiet man. And now you're... She stopped. The tears arrived mid-sentence. You're trying to ruin what's left of him. That's the thing about grief. It makes people protective of their pain. Joy needed her version of Dad to stay unblemished. She needed him simple, loyal, contained. The real man, the one who'd made mistakes and carried them like pocket change, didn't fit her religion of grief. I'm not trying to ruin him, I said. He left this for us to find. Maybe he didn't mean for you to read it, she snapped. He wrote our names on it, Claire said. Joy pressed her hands to her face. You're not telling the bank, or the lawyer, or anyone. This dies here. We didn't argue. Arguing with someone drowning only makes them pull harder. That night after she went to bed, Claire and I sat on the shop steps with 2 beers in silence. The lockbox sat between us like a shared secret. You think we should look for him? Claire asked eventually. I think Dad wanted us to, I said. Otherwise, why leave the trail? You realize we have nothing to go on but a first name and a birth certificate. Yeah, I said. But we have that. Jesse Allen, born in 1993, same county. Mother, Vanessa Ruiz. That's not much, but the world's full of people who don't want to be found, and the internet is full of people who find them anyway. Claire handled the practical, phone calls, records requests, the polite voice that makes bureaucrats actually look things up. I handled the creeping part. Social media, obituaries, alumni pages. It's amazing how quickly your brain turns into an investigative algorithm when you have something human to anchor it to. We started with the county records. The woman at the desk said birth records older than 30 years were public. She looked up Jesse Allen Ruiz and tapped her keyboard with the slow reverence of a gatekeeper. Born July 12, 1993. Mother, Vanessa Ruiz. No father listed. Can we see addresses? Claire asked. She pointed at the screen. This one's old. It's a P.O. box. She moved out of the county around 2000. That gave us a window. Jessie would have been 7. Around that time, Dad's notebook showed those return to sender marks. It lined up. Next, obituaries. Vanessa Ruiz wasn't in any. Good news. That meant she was likely alive somewhere. Facebook gave us 5 options. Only one looked right. Profile photo of a woman in her 50s holding a tabby cat. Location listed as a small city 2 hours east. The banner image was a photo of an old red car. Dad had driven one exactly like it. I messaged her from a throwaway account first. I didn't say names, just, "Hi, I think you might have known my father, Martin Keller. I'm not looking for trouble, just answers." No response that day or the next. Then at 1:12 a.m., a reply. "I was wondering when one of you would come looking." I stared at the screen until my coffee went cold again. Vanessa didn't want to meet. She wanted to talk. "Phone first," she said. Her voice, when it came through the speaker, had that tired music of someone who's outlived a story. "I knew this day would come," she said. "I didn't think it'd take this long." "Did my dad ever—" I started. She cut me off gently. "He tried. You have to understand, we were young and scared and broke. My mother would have killed me if she'd known who the father was. He thought leaving was mercy." "Mercy for who?" "For everyone," she said. "It's a lie people tell when they don't know how to stay." I didn't know what to say to that. "Jesse's fine," she continued. "He's not a criminal, not in jail, not in rehab. He's a mechanic. Funny how that works, huh?" I laughed. It came out like a cough. "So he's like him?" "Yeah," she said softly. "He's like him." She paused long enough for me to hear the tick of a clock somewhere in her kitchen. "He knows about you," she said. "I told him after your father died. He didn't want me to at first, but then he said, maybe they should know I exist before I disappear too." "Disappear?" "He moves a lot, says it's for work, but it's more like he doesn't trust the ground to stay still." "Where is he now?" "Last I heard, Springfield." "That was only an hour from us." She gave me a number. "If you call, tell him I didn't make you." When the line clicked dead, I looked at Claire. "You're not thinking," she began. "I am," I said. I texted him. It felt surreal typing, "Hey, I think we might be related to a stranger." He didn't reply for 3 days. I figured that was that. Then out of nowhere, "What do you want?" Straightforward, a Keller trait. To talk, nothing else. Why? Because he wanted us to. 5 minutes passed. Then, "Meet me, Thursday, 3 p.m., Miller's Garage. Don't bring the lawyer." I showed the text to Claire. "You're not going alone," she said. "I'm not leaving you out of this," I said. "Good," she said, "because I'm driving." Miller's Garage sat at the edge of town, the kind of place that sold used tires and barbecue sandwiches out of the same building. Smelled like old oil and sweet smoke. Jesse was already there. I knew him before he turned. Same jaw, same shoulders, same way of standing, like gravity worked harder on him than everyone else. He looked like Dad's reflection edited by time. He didn't smile. "You the Kellers?" "Yeah," Claire said. He nodded once. "You look like him." "So do you," I said. That broke something. He laughed, sharp and real. "That's not the compliment you think it is." We stood in awkward silence until he said, "You got the letter?" "Both of them," I said. "Figures. He always liked puzzles." We talked for hours. He told us about growing up with Vanessa, about leaving town at 18, about hating the man whose name wasn't on his birth certificate, and then hating himself for caring. "He sent me money once," Jesse said. "Didn't even put a note with it. Just a folded 100 and a napkin that said, 'Use it right.' I burned it." Claire asked why he kept the notebook in the safe key. "Because I wanted to see if he'd ever come looking. Guess he didn't." "He tried," I said. Jesse looked at me, eyes sharp. "You don't owe him excuses." "I'm not giving them," I said. "I'm giving you facts." He looked away, jaw tight. "Facts don't fix ghosts." No one spoke after that. We just sat there, 3 versions of the same man in different shapes, surrounded by the smell of grease and smoke. Before we left, Jesse said, "You can tell Joy or not, but don't tell the papers. He didn't deserve that." "We won't," Claire said. He handed me the pocket knife. "It's yours now. He would have wanted that." I took it, even though it felt heavy with something I couldn't name. Joy never asked where we'd been. She probably didn't want to know. The shop stayed open. Claire took over books. I handled design. Jesse didn't come by, but sometimes a part delivery would arrive with a note scribbled on the invoice. "Tell the old place to keep the lights on." He never signed them. He didn't have to. A year later, the trust settled, the papers filed, the casseroles long gone. I found myself in the shop one evening, alone. The sun slanted through the door, hitting the pegboard just right. I thought about Dad, about secrets, about how people think truth is something you find once. It isn't. It's something you keep rediscovering, in letters, in receipts, in people's faces. I pulled the lockbox out one more time. Inside were the letters, the notebook, the photo. I added the pocket knife. For the first time in a long time, the space felt bigger. Dad always said there's a last piece to every project, and it's never the one you expect. Turns out he was right. It wasn't the will, or the shop, or even the secret kid. It was knowing that every version of him, the mechanic, the father, the liar, the man who tried, was real. And that, finally, was enough.